It just becomes, it's cachet. It's cachet, honey.
I love that. Okay, our next question. Who were your DJ mentors?
Like who have I stolen from the most?
Maybe. Or
Two of them on this panel.
Or borrowed.
I just want to mention the one person I want to mention is this one that's not here, which is John Cilia. I love his sound. I do love his sound. I love his vibe, everything about him. So he's just someone that I would just listen to every mix, every segue, whatever. So, awesome.
Shout out to John.
For me, my mentor's name is Vito, and he was a friend of mine from Long Island before I even knew about Fire Island, and he was the first DJ I actually ever heard. And we became friends, and I picked up pointers from him, and I came out here and would religiously go to the Ice Palace every Saturday night to hear him play and learn how to read a crowd so wonderfully as he could do. And I guess the second person that influenced me the most would be Jim Burgess. I never heard somebody play two records at the same time for an extended length of time, and I said, wow, I have to try that. And that became, I practiced it, and I learned it. So between the two of them, they're my mentors.
There's a gentleman also from Long Island, but he never really worked in New York City or this area. His name is Bobby Vito, and he was huge in San Francisco, and I met him and worked with him in Fort Lauderdale at the Poop Deck. And I did lights for him. I used to do T-dance during the week, because it was a low pressure, low impact gig, and I was just getting started, but I would do lights. So I got to work with this master DJ who was incredibly talented, and I'd be with him from the first song to the last song. So he taught me just by experience, by exposure, and he was very, very giving of advice, and not only technical, but also how to market yourself, how to behave in the booth, how to, the etiquette of being a DJ, and just, the whole public aspect of it. So yeah, I owe him everything.
Love to hear that. I have sort of three levels of mentors, some from afar and some up close. So my biggest influence is my older brother, because when I was 13, he was 15, we were in St. Louis, we were bored, he bought his first Radio Shack mixer and double tape deck, and we would just kind of play around. That's really how we started DJing and doing team clubs and stuff like that. When I moved to New York, it was really Junior Vasquez, Antonaglia, Frankie Knuckles that were my biggest influences. And then later on, as far as personally, I worked running record labels for Ray Rock of Rock and Vito, and then Larry T. I worked with Larry for about 4 years, and he just taught me so much about the industry, about how everything works, and how to take chances as a DJ, and how to market and brand yourself. So those are my mentors.
And I was lucky to work on some projects with Kevin and Larry also. I think one of my influences was definitely Max Rodriquez for sure. Oh, stop! Don't play. Yeah, I would definitely hang out at the hotel deck and listen to Max play. I always just happen to catch his sets. He's really good. He taught me a good disco set. Remember, Max was always lugging records out here. It's still being stubborn, last person playing records. I respect that. And then of course Danny Tenaglia. Yeah, everyone loves Danny Tenaglia. But I used to DJ at the Tunnel, and he was a resident, and I used to love to get off and go hear him play. And there was one more person, I can't remember. Someone pass this along.
Well, with me, I started in New Orleans in 1982 with the Lesbian Boys, and the guys, there were two DJs in the men's bar that took me under their wing, Ricky Merriweather and Brian Burke, who are no longer with us, but Ricky brought me up to New York to see a Saint closing party, 1983, and Robbie was the DJ, and he said, you gotta come, you gotta be there for the very first record, and watch the place build and everything like that. I'd never been to New York or anything like that, so Rhapsody of Blue was the first thing he played. I was the first person on the dance floor, and he had it built. So Ricky introduced me to Robbie, then Warren and Michael Tillman, I guess, Robbie, Warren, and Michael Tillman are really cool. Some DJs just play records, other DJs are maestros, and these guys are maestros.
Okay, that's kind of a tough question as far as my mentor. My first experience going to a nightclub was 2001 in West Iceland. And the dance floor lit up, and the DJ was mixing music. And I was very curious as to how he was mixing music. And I asked a lot of questions. I actually went out and I bought a little mixer after that. And I bought a belt-driven turntable. And I started mixing from a belt-driven turntable to a cassette deck, back and forth. Then I started making reel-to-reel tapes for Rosalie Morale. She owned the Big Hills Jewish Center, and she used to have tea dances. So I would make all the tea dance music for her. So she was kind of, I guess she influenced me as far as what she wanted on there and the kind of songs that she wanted. But I must say that I owe part of my career to Warren Gluck. Warren used to play at Stars in Deer Park. And he was off at a full-time position on Fire Island at the Monster, if I'm not mistaken. And somehow we met each other, and he said, "Stephen, would you like to take over my nights at Stars?" And I said, "Sure." And that's what I did. I had Wednesdays and Saturday nights for Warren. So if it wasn't for Warren, I wouldn't have played at Stars, and I thank him for that.
Stars was one of my first gay clubs. Awesome. Yes. You were probably playing there. Didn't know you. Wasn't that Space Oddity or like the John Travolta club in West Sayville? Yes. It was like
probably like 1976, 77.
at the Saturday Night Fever dance floor.
It was amazing. It was amazing.
Now we're all showing our age. Never mind.
That's okay.
For my more seasoned DJs, describe what the scene was then musically. So, Steve, what was the scene when you first started DJing? What was the music like? What was the crowd like?
It was awesome. It was always awesome. It was always awesome. That's all I can say.
Okay, Max.
Well, it was in the late 80s, it was transitioning from disco into dance-oriented rock into house music was starting to come in the late 80s. So that some crowd were holding on to the disco era, and then the younger ones were grabbing onto the house stuff. So it was sort of a transition period back then.
Like new wave, would you say? That was
A little bit of new wave, but not a whole lot. It was mostly like, Depeche Mode type stuff and things like that, and erasure, mixing with the old disco.
Let's pass this to Robbie.
What was this question one more time?
Well, this is for my more seasoned guys.
The senior citizen DJ.
Isn't that a nice word? Come on. I don't want to be the seasoned. Don't want to be old. Yeah, so the question is, what was the scene like and musically? What was the musical landscape?
Okay. I want you to picture a thrilling time when every week you would go into New York City or to your record pool and you would get a stack of records about so high. And of that stack, I would say probably 75% were either good or great. They were huge artists, French Jolie. This is like on a weekly basis, folks. This is not like once or twice a year. You'd get Donna Summer, you'd get French Jolie, you'd get all these Casablanca artists and Prelude artists and Atlantic artists. And all the big labels. I wish I could just rattle them off, but just think of all your favorite songs. And they were just coming out on a weekly basis. And then you'd come out here and you'd play a set that was probably about 80% new stuff. And all the songs that we've come to love were brand new. And it was thrilling. The crowd was totally into it. They were absolutely aligned with wherever your headspace was, and they went with you wherever you took them. They were very compliant, I guess is a good way to say it, but they were very open to new stuff. And each week it changed. I remember like listening to Richie Rivera or Howard or Wayne Scott here, Kevin Burke, and it'd be like, oh, wait till you hear the new Donna and Barbara. And it was like, oh yeah? But it was just, that was just the way it was, and it was coming out at a breakneck pace. It was fantastic. It was really fantastic. It was great.
Well, having started in 1975, my music precludes everybody here, and that is before the age of record pools, and it's before the age of a 12-inch single. And back then, we would have stacks of 45s, which I would keep in speed order, from 102, 104. You'd have stacks of 45s in the booth. And since songs were short, and not even necessarily stereo in those days, you'd keep 2 copies of the 45s, and sometimes they would have part 1 on side 1 and part 2 on side 2. And that's where you learn to mix the length of the song to its full length. So, you also had album pressings, and then they were very low level, but literally you had stacks of 45s, and that's pre-disco. So the music was R&B, basically, and different speeds. But because they were gay bars, it was still a haven for people to go. Like the first gay bar I went to, where I met Roy Thug, it was called Jamie's. It was a little place on Jericho Turnpike in Syosset, and the dance floor was about from here to the wall. I mean, that's it. It was tiny. And when the police would drive by, and when we were dancing close, they would say, the police are outside. Everybody had to break away from each other. So, I mean, times were different then. Everybody takes for granted with gay pride and how accepting things were. And the Silver Lion, the club I opened at, that was in a neighborhood in Floral Park. And it's amazing that we never had any trouble with the neighbors. And here was this gay bar that was packed to the rafters every single night. And, people, music is music. And for gay people, music is life. It's basic. And they would go to forget their daily problems and to enjoy themselves on the dance floor. And I would go to the city and buy 45s, or I remember going to the Hempstead bus station because that was in the black area, and this black music was what we were playing. And one of the boys used to work there, so we would go and buy our 45s there and make a trip into New York. And then after that, we became friends with the promoters for different labels, and you'd have to spend days in New York from going label to label to label and picking up a stack of the new releases. And I can remember, for instance, we used to listen to WBLS on the radio, and Frankie Crocker was a famous DJ, and he mentioned that he was going to be playing the new, he had a way advanced copy of Donna and Barbara, and that was enough. And he was going to be playing it in the next hour. And I was out with a friend of mine, and I said, we have to get home, I have to tape that. And we got back to his apartment, and I taped it on a cassette, and I played it that night at the Bunk House, on Long Island, where I was playing. So, thank God for the radio that night, and I got to play it way in advance.
Thank you. Another side note, like Warren was touching on before, is the idea that men were not able to dance with each other. And this place has that history. You were not able to dance with another man. We have many older residents here who were the girl on the chain. That's why line dances started, because if there were 2 girls and 10 guys, it was okay. The owner here, John White, used to get on a ladder and with a flashlight would flash on you if you got too close. So PJ, see how lucky you got it? No, did it here. So I'm going to go back to that question, and there is a method to my madness now, to my young guys. Same question. Describe your scene musically when you came here as a DJ. What was the crowd like? How is it like now? So we'll start with Mikey. When you started DJing. What was music like at that point?
Okay, well,
it's not that long ago.
like 7 years.
I know, but
Here's the big difference for me. The big difference is when I started, what I enjoyed was I liked coming here to hear the classics. I loved hearing disco. I loved hearing early 80s. Like, that's what I wanted to come and listen to. And but I kind of recreating that in my sets. I just felt like I just saw like pockets of people feeling left out, and so I just felt like, why isn't there more current stuff kind of being mixed into it? And I actually had a directive from the previous management, like, well, don't play that stuff because we only want to play a certain vibe or whatever. And so I just kind of like creeping things in. I feel like I have very eclectic sets, and I feel like if you don't have, I feel like every person should at least every third song be like, oh, that's for me. And so I felt like it didn't seem as inclusive, at least to my ears as a patron becoming a DJ, and I feel like that's changed remarkably since then.
So when I first came here in 2007, music was definitely in transition out here. You know, in New York, Giuliani closed down all the clubs, and so a lot of the underground house music and stuff at the time from the late 90s was just not being played. And it became about having these small bars and venues with pop music that everyone knew. And it was hard for me to adjust to that because I used to play unknown stuff. You know, like Robbie said, people would react really well to what we know now as classics, but at the time it was brand new stuff that they'd never heard before. And what I found though on Far Island is people were open to both. You know, they might in the city dance at the bar to pop music, but when they are here, they're okay during the dance mix. You know, they're okay to like hear some stuff and explode. So when I played low T, I would play disco, and I would transition into some 80s or even 90s stuff, you know, that they knew, and that seemed to work really well. But I definitely wanted to stay true to the like happy vibe of the sing-along feeling, the happy feeling, because that's, I mean, it's the afternoon tea, that's what you're supposed to do, right? Not go dark.
agreed.
Well, to add to that, I also hate when people play night music during the day. Like day music during the day, night music at night, please. But when I first came here, I think that they hadn't brought any. For what I had seen, they had like a night scene that was like. They had like the older DJs that have been here for a while, and they were bringing in these new DJs that no one. It wasn't really gelling. It didn't seem to work. The older DJs were working, and when I came in, they were definitely looking for like some of the younger DJs to relate to some of the younger crowd. And when I first played low T, like I played like my version of low T, like the same way Mike does. You know, it's like, oh, these would be classics, but these would be the way I do it, and it was like different. And I remember you came up to me and were like, can you play Souvenirs? I was like, what the hell is that? What are you talking about? And, you know, I had something to learn. I remember that moment, definitely.
Yes, side note to that, I remember I would make CDs of all classic music, and I would give them to him. He would play these. So, you know, it doesn't sleep well. That's never thanks to the dog. All right. So, you're the perfect person because I think it was 2 years ago we